Welcome to our podcast, Where Do We Go? Where we bring in guests to have conversations with high schoolers that are both relatable and informative regarding the idea of female leadership. I'm Kylie, and I'm the founder of the organization and club WeGo, and I'm so glad that you decided to listen to our podcast today. WeGo stands for Women Empowerment and Global Opportunity, and our mission is to cultivate the skill set students will need in order to foster a new generation of strong leaders that will make changes in the field that they want to take on. Because the stage is set for girls and women everywhere. We go.
Okay, so welcome to the fourth episode of our podcast, Where Do We Go? My name is Kylie, and I'm the founder of WeGo. And today I am joined by Miss Kanoe Gibson. I will let her formally introduce herself in a moment, but she is known for her appearances on, television stations, her experience in music, TV hosting, business, public speaking, and so you may recognize her from the TV show Hi Now. And she's also the Miss Hawaii 2003, the runner-up of Miss America 2004, and one of the owners of Nita Fishing Innovations. So I'll let her introduce herself now and a little bit about what she does. And yeah.
That was a very long list, Kylie. Thank you. It's funny because one of the things that actually drove my husband crazy when I met him was that I was all over the place and I did a million things and I wanted to do something different every day. So that just kind of explains me in a nutshell. You explained that I'm actually on High Now, and my road to getting into the show was very unconventional. But for those who don't know what it is, it's actually a lifestyle segment that airs during the Sunrise show, which is the morning news on, KGMB, KHNL, K5. And we do all of the fun stuff. We're like the positive news. We get to do the food, we get to travel, we get to highlight, the local heroes of our community, which are local businesses. And I feel like I have the best job in the world. I get to see all of these people and people I never knew, and then retell their stories in a creative way. And so part of my job description, I guess, it looks like I just have all the fun and I get to eat all the food, but really, we are creators and we are storytellers. So I do a lot of editing. I actually build my stories, and then it gets sent to the editor, who then puts in all the video and the music and all of the fun. So that's just the job in a nutshell. If I'm going to kind of go backwards a little bit, my road to it, I didn't have, a journalism background, and I had no intention of ever going into the field of media. I was actually a flight attendant with Hawaiian Airlines for 12 years, and I thought that was my life. I was like, this is it. I love my job. I'm traveling the world, and I'm getting paid pretty good. I got a good husband. He makes the money, so I'm good now. But really, because of my Miss Hawaii background, which even that was kind of a fluke. The only reason why I ran there was because I needed to go back to college, and I was furloughed from Hawaiian after 9/11. And so I had a girl one night come up to me while I was singing part-time, and she's like, you really need to run for Miss Hawaii. And I was like, absolutely not. I am clumsy as they come. I am not a pageant girl. Long story short, I ran anyway and ended up winning. I was like, what? Go to Miss America. And I wasn't at all expecting to even do, I was like, I don't even smell even top 10, Yeah. But so I was like, I'm just committed to having fun. I'm going to just have a ton of fun here. And I did. But then top 10 comes and I'm like, crap, here we go. And then top 5 comes and here I am in top 5. And then I'm starting to freak out because I'm like, I knew that Miss America would be gone from her home for a year. And I had a dog at home and I'm like, I don't want to win. I was freaking out. So I was like, Lord, if I could just get first runner up, that would be perfect. Cause then I get all the scholarship money and then I win, I get to go back home. So I win and I get to be Miss Hawaii. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up with like $50,000 in scholarships. I got to go back and get my degree. And so fast forward a little bit, I went back to being a flight attendant. And then I just knew that I had a calling on my life to be a speaker of some sort. That was the gift that I knew I had inside of me. And I had very specific scenarios where 3 different people, strangers, came up to me and told me, you have a gift of speaking. And it was in the most random places, like places I wasn't even talking. I was singing, but they were like, I'm so sorry if we seem weird, but we just want to tell you, we feel like you have this gift and you're going to speak to the nations. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what that means, but I had friends in the media. You know, Ryan Suji is a really good friend of mine. He was at KITV at the time. Olena Hugh was at KHON, Ron Mizutani. And so I knew all of them just running in the same circles. And Ryan Suji told me, you know, you really should just apply, just try, you never know. And I did. And it was funny because Hawaii News Now, which is where I'm at now, they didn't even give me the time of day. KITV didn't give me the time of day. KHON actually was like, okay, you know what, we'll give you a shot, because I had interned there in college, and they did. And so I ended up doing weather. I was a part-time reporter to give me a shot, you know, and then it just rapidly grew from there. I mean, I was like being promoted left and right, and it was such a blessing. And I guess that's just putting your gift to use. You know, when you are able to hone your skills and put it to use, then you can flourish, you know, in the place that you're supposed to be. So I ended up having kids. I have two children, a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old. But at the time, I ended up, I already had one in the news, and then I got pregnant with my daughter, and it was like a high risk pregnancy. So I ended up taking a break from the news, went back after she was one, and then I quit again because it just took over my life. And I was like, I'm never going back. You know, I don't want to be in the news. I don't want to be on TV. It's just too much for me. And so a couple of years later, which was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago now, I've been on High Now. Katie Pickman, who's now our general manager, she called me up and she's like, hey, what are you doing now? I just want to, you know, pick your brain a little bit. No idea. Just was out of the blue. She was starting the show High Now. And long story short, she offered it to me. I prayed about it, talked to my husband, and I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time to go back, and took a step of faith. And here I am and loving life. That was a long story. That was trying to put it all in one. Sorry.
No, that was perfect. And, you know, I think we always have a question that we ask here, and we ask our guests, and we're always like curious to know about like who are some of the women in your life that you admire and look up to?
Oh man. I think my sisters, for one, are two people who have always been like rocks in my life, you know, and I think more than anything, they've shaped me, just who I am, and as you know, in general, but spiritually as well. Like they've always been able to guide me and give me that accountability and that guidance and the godly wisdom that I always needed. So they're that on the spiritual side, and I'm a big believer in, you know, having mentors. And even if it's not people you meet with all the time, it's like, even if you have to just follow them, they don't even know they're your mentor, you know. So I have a lot of those. Kathy Thurston is one of them. She's also a spiritual advisor, but she was a CEO of her own construction company for the longest time, you know. And so to have that business mind, I wanted her in my corner, and so she is one of those people. Gosh, even my general manager, Katie, I mean, just looking at her business mind, you know, like I don't meet with her a ton, but she's one of those people that I'm like, man, she is a woman who is like paving the way for other women, you know. And yeah, I have tons of people in my church who are amazing as well. So
yeah. I think it's pretty interesting to see because, you know, all the guests that we have on, they always, you know, think about not only like their family, but they also think about just people that they've heard about and read about and just watched on TV. And, you know, media makes up such a big portion of, you know, the information that we consume, who we see, who we look up to. And so I think that's kind of like a good segue into the next question, which was like, you know, because media makes up such a big portion of what we read and information we consume, whether through, you know, what we see on TV or, you know, the posts we see. What are ways that you think we can use media both through television media and social media to highlight and empower women?
Whew, I have a lot to say on this topic, and you may be you may actually be surprised on my stance. I've actually kind of gone through this whole process this past 2 years about media and social media. I mean, for one, it's my life. It's what I do, you know, both in television and on social media. And so on the TV side of it, I mean, there are so many opportunities. You know, the world of media is really changing. A lot of people, we used to do, you know, 30-second commercials. Well, everybody fast forwards through the commercials now, right? You don't watch those things anymore, which was why High Now was so ingenious, because actually this has become the new road of marketing. So what people are doing is they're paying to have these segments and it's showing up in commercial spots, but they don't even know it. It looks like it's a news segment or a creative lifestyle segment. So there are new creative ways to be able to use this avenue that people, I don't know, are kind of losing sight of because of the fast forwarding and the digital technology, and I need it now. But digital really is where it's at, I believe, and that's a hard one because for me, I've really stepped away from social media. I mean, I have my Instagram, but I actually logged off of Facebook, gosh, I don't know, 6 months ago or something, and I've never gone back. And I kind of feel like I'm not going to. And the
Right.
scary thing is because of the atmosphere that we have on social media nowadays. And it's really, I mean, you know how it is. It's the political
Yeah.
atmosphere. And so it's actually really hard now for people to get their message out there and to be able to use that platform the way that they probably want to, but can't because of the way that it's run. And so that's a difficult one. But I think, if it can be used in such a positive way, and I think if you are able to do that, absolutely you should. But I have a lot to say on social media, but I'll say that if it comes up in a question. I don't know.
Yeah. And so you kind of talked a little bit about how media has changed, especially like over the past few years in just like such a small amount of time. So what do you see, and also like what do you hope to see the media becoming for women in like 10 years?
Oh
Like,
man, I mean, it's already happening. I mean, we're seeing it politically. The atmosphere is changing for women, and I think that that's an amazing thing. But at the same time, it's hard to know whether or not in 10 years if the world of media is going to be what we hope it's going to be. And I think because of the route that it's going in, I mean, it's becoming this echo chamber of agenda of exactly what you want to hear. So like I was saying, like you can hope that you have this avenue to use, but people are going to use it however they want. They're consuming what they want to consume. So if, say I'm putting out this content of empowering women, well, if people aren't wanting to tune into this content of empowering women, they're not ever going to see it, So I don't want to be the Debbie Downer, but I'm like, man, gosh, what can we do? And I don't have that answer, I'm hoping that women like you, young women like you, who have this fortitude and this vision to see women rise up at such a young age, that you will be able to say, hey, you know what, we're going to change things. We're going to create a new platform. We're going to start doing things for women. I think there's an avenue for that right now. I think there's an opportunity for, because, there's now people are breaking away and creating new, I guess you could call it political social platforms, but I think there's an opportunity for there to be a women's platform in the
right.
social media world.
Mhm. And I think like also, I don't think anyone has like a specific right answer to, solving the issue of gender equality. And, but I think something that is what I believe is having, dialogue and conversations, with, people like you, professionals like you who we look up to and, we know have this expertise and have experience in this kind of field and, have this expertise in, these fields that we can look up to and learn from. I think that that's also really important. And, we can learn from people like you and having good dialogue and inspirational dialogue, in fact.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it's just really going to take a lot of women who are comfortable and are ready to say, you know what, this is what we want and this is what we're doing. But to do so with a humble heart, because there's also a lot of touting and shouting and like we rise up or whatever. And I feel like sometimes that goes against what we're really trying to do, because women are really special people. We are special people. I mean, we were given gifts to have more compassion, to be more loving, to be able to unify. I mean, when you look back at the history of women, they were together, banded together, and they were raising their families together. They were cooking together. They were almost like the strength of the family without really being recognized for it.
Right.
And so I feel like if we can get back to the basics of being those people again, of being those women of love and kindness and goodness and compassion, and raising up young women to be the same rather than being these like hateful, I deserve this. It's becoming a very volatile place
Yeah.
to be. And you can feel it in the atmosphere, and it doesn't feel right. And for some people, they're going to hear this and be like, oh my gosh. But I truly believe that. I believe if we can come back to being who we were created to be, we could still be very strong and we can still pave roads that have never been paved. But I think we should do it with a new heart.
Yeah, and I think that's prevalent in social media too. Like, just seeing it on social media, and really, it's like this ubiquitous kind of thing that we see all the time in media.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good point that you bring up. And so I think also something that I was really curious about too was your job in media. And there's so much, like these kind of like misconceptions about it. So I was wondering if there's any like common myths about your job in media that you kind of want to challenge.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. I don't know. What are the myths? Do you have any myths you can tell me about?
I don't know. I feel like sometimes like people on the media, they're really like they try to present themselves in a way that is different from, how they really are. And is that like a positive or a negative thing? And those kind of myths on how you present themselves, or maybe myths on like um, just how you portray yourself sometimes can be.
Yeah, I mean it's difficult because when you're in the world of media, especially in news media, I mean it's funny because it's almost like a type of celebrity, right? A type of
Right.
local celebrity, and people have expectations of you and what they think that you're supposed to be like, and of course we do have specific, I don't know, I don't want to say rules, but there are certain things that you can't really talk about on air.
Right.
You can't express your beliefs. You can't really talk about your political beliefs or whatever it may be. And so you do almost have to present yourself in a different way than you would, I don't know, on a social media platform. And even there, we have to be careful,
Right. Exactly.
about what we post. And so, I mean, I don't know if I would call that a myth, but there's definitely that factor that goes, that plays into who we have to be on air compared to who we are at home.
Right.
I think I think for myself, I'm lucky because I'm in the lifestyle, so I'm able to kind of be more myself, if that
Right.
makes any
Yeah.
sense. But it's hard because when you have to portray a role, you have to be this. I mean, especially reporters, anchors. You have to be kind of this strong woman and smart, which they all are. Sometimes that, again, that compassion and that love gets missed. People don't see that side, and so then they're harsh on them. I mean, we get attacked left and right from people who think that we're a certain way, and they forget that we're human. They forget that we're loving and kind and good. And so that's the hard part, because I don't know. I just feel like if we were able to be like, hey, look, I am normal too. Okay. I'm dealing with the same crap you're dealing with, but we can't do that. And so, yeah, that's hard.
Mm, right. And so, what I'm hearing is that you've learned a lot from your experience in media. And, I can hear that just like, from the stories that you've shared already. And so I think you talked about it before. And I also read that, you applied for that internship at KHON2 and you got to learn a lot from that experience. So and I was wondering, like, what are things that you've learned and what are ways that you've grown throughout your career?
Um, okay. Well, I think when I first started, I kind of just got thrown into it. The first day of my internship, they sent me out to like a car crash or something. And, I was like,
Yeah.
what is this? And I'm watching the reporter just go right in there. And I mean, you have to be able to approach families who say like a kid just killed, stabbed somebody else. And you have to tell the mom, hey,
Yeah.
this just happened. Tell me how you feel.
Yeah.
And that's really what drove me out of the business, because you become really desensitized to, you can become, I shouldn't say you do, you can become really desensitized to what people are dealing with at the time that they're dealing with it, because you're reporting it every single day. And so when I was able to step away, like I said, when I quit the news, I had to take a look at that aspect of it. And that's why I was like, I don't ever want to go back, because I don't want to be that person who
Right.
forgets humanity, who forgets that people are dealing with such tough situations, and I mean, granted, I work with the people who, they're great, like they've really been able to kind of balance that. But that was a big one, is just learning to be sensitive. And every single person who is in front of you, you know, they're not just a story, they're a person. And so for me now in the job that I'm in, I've really tried to make sure that when I meet a person and I'm going to interview them, it's not just to get an interview, you know, it's really to make them feel comfortable and to know that, hey, I want to know who you are. I want to hear your heart. And I think that that's kind of one of the things that's really helped me be able to be successful today. Not to brag, but I was just telling my husband today, I'm like, I've gotten like several emails this past week from sales executives who've told me my client was so happy. They said you made them feel so comfortable. And I'm like, you know what? That's what I'm there for. I am not there to be the glam, the glitz. I'm there to do a service for you. I'm here to make you feel comfortable to do so. So more than anything, that's what I have learned is to be, you know, be present with the person that I am interviewing and to make sure that their heart is communicated.
And even I feel like the media kind of highlights the lowest points and the like the, you know, the saddest stories, I feel like, because even so I'm in one of my classes I'm in is like social studies and we're learning about current events. So one of the parts of our class is we have to, you know, look up news stories and, you know, kind of like report back and what we kind of learn. And so most of the stories that we share are pretty sad, pretty, you know, I mean, right now it's surrounded by COVID, but you know, pretty much all the stories are, you know, kind of these sad, like, oh, a kid lost both of their parents to COVID, and you know, all these sad stories. And so he would always ask us, "Oh, are there any positive stories?" And then, you know, there would be silence. It would be like no positive stories. So I feel like, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from about.
Yeah. And sadly, I mean, that's just human nature, right? You know, you're driving down the freeway, you see the crash, and you can't help but be like, for some reason, as humans, that's what we want. We tune into that stuff, and I don't know what it is. I'm not a psychologist, or you know, I don't know why we do that, but that is why the media has gone in that direction. Unfortunately, I mean, I saw a story the other day that the headline said something about. They showed a picture of a mom with her daughter, and the headline read something about the fact that she died of COVID. But when I read the story, it was completely different, you know, from what it appeared to be, and it made me sad because I'm like, I don't want the media to be that, you know, where we're trying to just get clicks or we're just trying to get
Right.
views. And so yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm in the position I'm in because it's tough. It's tough as reporters nowadays. You know,
Yeah.
they get a lot of flack about why don't you report on this and why don't you report on that? Well, you know what? They can't report what people aren't willing to tell them. Like I always say that. I'm
Yeah.
like, if the officials at the top are not willing to say this is what's happening, well, they're not going to be able to report it. You know, so it's tough. I feel for them. I don't know. I admire them for the ability to be able to do it in this day and age.
Right. And I feel like so much has changed because of COVID. And so, you know, whether it's through, you know, the way that you maybe like film or the way that you
Yeah.
produce. Yeah. So I was wondering, you know, specifically what are things that have changed because of COVID? Like what is, you know, what's the new?
The new norm. The new norm. Well, you know, we obviously in the beginning, we went to a lot of Zoom interviews, a lot of FaceTime
Yeah.
interviews, which would have been unheard of, you know, just a year ago. You would never put a low quality interview on air. You would not put cell phone footage, at least not in the place that I'm at. You know, we edit very high quality edits, and but now we're able to do that. And the thing is that, and it's even with just COVID in general, if we can start to look at the positives that are coming out of it, you know, for example, in my career, I mean, now, yes, we are able to put lower quality interviews, but you know what that means? Now I can interview somebody on the outer island that I would have never been able to interview before. Now I can highlight businesses who are struggling, you know, or who are never even seen on Molokai or Lanai, you know. So I think that
Yes.
that's one of the greatest things. People are able to show their side, you know, because we film what we can film. We have our own creative eye on what we're going to film, but now people are giving us their own B-roll, and so it's you know, we're able to tell the story a little bit differently now. Still putting our creative eye behind it, but I think that that's great. I think
Yeah.
moving forward, it's kind of like school, right? You know, you have this new hybrid system of learning, and it's a blessing now, right? I mean, because now somebody calls out sick and hopefully they can still join the class or whatever it is. And so that's what I'm seeing even in interviewing people. I just interviewed Kamehameha Schools the other day and they were saying that, we're going to take this hybrid model and we're going to use it in the future, even when we do go back. So I think that that's great.
And also something really, I always bring this up when we talk about these like meetings is that because of this COVID, we probably wouldn't have even recognized these type of platforms and have these kind of options. And what's really interesting is that when I'm doing these kind of interviews, some of the guests that I've had on these podcasts and interviews, we're in New York or we're in California. It's really interesting how like now I can just kind of reach anybody like, in a matter of minutes through Zoom or through WebEx. And it's pretty cool how what we thought was impossible before is like possible now because of COVID. So, being able to have that kind of like positive mindset about it is also good because there's always a silver lining.
For sure. I was just telling my husband that today, because we own our own fishing company and it's more so him. He's invented these products, but I was telling him today, I'm like, if there's any time, now is the time because people are open to phone calls. They're open to Zoom meetings. We don't have to fly to Florida now to try to get a store. We can just call them up and be like, hey, you know what? We're going to Zoom, show you our stuff. And here we go. And so there are really great opportunities right now for so many people in many different fields. And I think that if you just open your eyes, it can be a really good time.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Especially even for school, like all of the new WebEx things and all of, we have like our teachers have to learn how to share their screens and do these like online classroom. It's pretty interesting how, the world has kind of evolved and changed because of, COVID. And it's sad, but also pretty interesting to see as well. Yeah. So then also I think I kind of wanted to move towards the direction of like, your passion. And I think you kind of like, mentioned about it in the beginning, but I was wondering how exactly did you find your passion and like, if there's like a specific experience or if there's like a specific person that kind of inspired you to go into that route that you're in now?
Well, like I said, it was so unconventional for me. So I never really realized it. Only now, I'm turning 40 this week and I really am starting to understand, and I'm hoping that opportunities like this will help young women be able to do this. But I mean, I'm a believer in your gifts and your passions are two different things. I think people sometimes marry those together and they get confused because your gifts are things that are your God-given talents. These are the things that you need to focus on. These are your strengths that you're going to be sharpening throughout your entire life to be able to apply to your life's purpose or your career or whatever that may be. And on that note, sometimes people get so focused on strengthening their weaknesses that they forget about the strengths, and their strengths will start to get weakened because of it. And because we look at, and this is where social media comes into play, the comparison trap, right? You're like, well, I want to do that and I want what she has and I want to. And so this is huge for me, is being able to focus on your gift, sharpen it, and continue to walk in that path. It took me way too long to get to where I'm at now, but I don't regret it because I learned a lot of life lessons. My husband had to really teach me that because I was all over the place. I mean, holy moly. I was like, one day I was like, I'm going to go to flight school and be a pilot, or I'm going to go to med school. It's just ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, if I could tell anybody nowadays, it's like, if you could know your gift and sharpen that gift, but also be very aware of your passions, because passions are the things that are going to drive you there. So for example, one of my passions is singing. That's something that I'm able to do, and it gives me life. At one point in my life, I felt like I would die if I couldn't just, like let out that voice, right? So these are the things that burn within you, like, I gotta do this. But I also feel like your passions change with the seasons. There's seasonal passions. And so your gift will continue to be the underlying driving factor, but then your passions are kind of like the fuel along the way to keep you balanced. And so now, one of my passions is like Bible journaling or what is reading, so it's like those things kind of change throughout the process. But yeah, like if you could find that gift, and I'm a big believer in journaling, like writing these things down, knowing whether or not, finding those mentors and kind of talking it out and figuring out whether or not this truly is the direction you're supposed to go in, and then surrounding yourself with people who are great at it, and then trying it out, put your feet in the water, start doing things. But anyway, when I think backwards now, because I didn't figure it out at a young age, but when I think now, like, why is this truly my gift? Well, absolutely. I was that girl in class who was like, pick me. I want to talk, like I want to answer all the questions. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? This is absolutely where I'm supposed to be. I was the one who wanted to be in all the groups. I wanted to be the speaker. I'm like the weird person. I'm the 10% of people or whatever it is nowadays that likes to go in front of people and talk, or likes to be in front of the camera. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting is, having this, one of the reasons actually why that we have these podcasts is so that, girls our age can kind of figure out what they want to do. Because in the future, there's going to be a plethora of new jobs and career choices that are going to be available. So just having these conversations and having the opportunity to listen to professionals and what they do can kind of help us, differentiate what careers we want to do and then also which ones we don't. So I think, yeah, it's pretty interesting to have different voices and, hearing different voices and their opinions and, what
Yeah,
they do.
I mean, that's why I commend you. I wish I had something like this when I was younger. I wish I had this guidance, because it probably could have saved me many years. But at the same time, I can use my own experience. And like I said, being 40 now and thinking that I wasted so much time because I didn't have any guidance. But at the same time, I can also say, hey, you know what? If you go down a path and you realize that's not it, well, don't be scared of that. Like, it's okay. Change direction and move, just keep moving. That's all you can do, right? So just know that wherever you are going or wherever you are is exactly where you're supposed to be or wherever you're supposed to be going, like I think that that's an opportunity for people. But you guys aren't going to have a problem. You little girls you got it.
So then what is your advice for those interested in, becoming a TV personality or even a host of a show, kind of like me? So what advice would you give to those girls?
Yeah. Is that what you want to do?
I guess not. Right now, not really. But I mean, like for, but yeah, I want to be able to create something. So I think this is a good start.
I mean, I think just well, gosh, doing what you're doing, already. You're talking to people, but I don't know if I can give any different advice as anybody else would give, going down that road. I wish I had gone down it earlier. I wish I did the communication thing. I wish I did the journalism thing, just so that I could have learned earlier. But reading, I mean, I did a crash course on it, just reading up on everything and what you're supposed to do. But yeah, like reading and writing, I think are the two things. If you love to do those things, that's probably going to be a key factor in knowing whether or not this is a job for you, because it's not just to sit in front of the teleprompter and read, right? I mean, you do have to have a brain. You do have to be able to remember things and to rewrite it, which again, you guys won't have a problem. You guys are all amazing. But yeah, just knowing whether or not this truly is something like I said, that gift of reading, writing, and liking to be in front of people, liking to have conversations with people, and truly, genuinely being interested in who people are, because I think if it's just the idea that you want to be on camera, I would say this job is not for you if you don't like people. You have to like people. You have to be, at least that's my opinion, if you want to be a really great reporter or a great TV host. You can't just want it for the idea of the glitz and the glamour and the fame, because trust me, that is not what you get, Lynn. And you do need to really have a strong sense of who you are. I mean, I have seen so many people who are riddled with anxiety, because of comments that they end up getting, and you get them, trust me, you get a ton, whether it's emails or people on your social media. So I think that would be the most important thing, is really truly knowing who you are, knowing who your corner is, whether that's your family or really good friends, and knowing that they're the most important people and they're really truly all that matters, because everybody's got an opinion nowadays of who you are, right? So you need to make sure that you have that really strong corner, that really strong circle of people around you, and just making sure that you hold true to that, hold true to who you are. I had to learn that along the way. There were many times that I went here and there and was worried about what everyone thought of me, but I just have come into that sense of self now of knowing, and maybe that comes with, you know, maturing or getting a family and finding your, I guess, new priorities. But yeah, setting your priorities, making sure you have those in order at all times, because when that starts to get all out of order, you know, it's going to show, and it'll bring your career down for sure.
Yeah. And there's,
did I even answer your question?
I think yeah, like, you know, that was like, I think there was a lot of questions that were submitted by students asking about, you know, your experiences in media and what you do, and, you know, how is it like to like project yourself in front of such a big audience and, you know, being known. I think that kind of like that, yeah, that answered it, I think, because there were certainly a lot of people who are definitely interested in pursuing what you are doing right now. So it's really interesting to hear what you have to say. And I think also another thing that people asked a lot was about your experience in pageants. And so maybe if you could like talk about your experience in there, and also what are like the positive impacts of pageants to kind of empower women, because I think there was a lot of questions asked about that as well.
Okay, and I think I missed the point of saying this. That doing the pageant thing probably was the biggest factor in me being able to be comfortable, I guess, answering questions or speaking in front of people, having to, you know, study current events.
Right.
Now that I think about it, now that you said it, my monkey mind came back to focus. Yeah, during that process. So a lot of people don't realize, you know, even pageants, that's another misconception, right? That it's just going on stage and being in a bikini or in a gown and floating around and then, woo, I get a crown. Well, especially in the Miss America pageant, that's absolutely not it at all. You know, the smarter girls are typically the ones who end up winning, the ones who are able to communicate effectively. You know, these are the ones that they are like, you know what, we want her to represent our state, because Miss America then becomes this representative of the nation, right? And she goes around and she speaks and delivers these inspirational speeches. And so, yeah, I had to, at the time, study current events, make sure that I was able to endure this grueling 7-minute interview. I mean, you have a panel of judges, you know, who are just firing questions at you, and they're controversial questions. So that really made me have to think, gosh, who am I? Because they're going to ask you things that challenge your belief system and that challenge, you know, who you are as a person. And so that really was a great experience for me. I probably wouldn't have known, you know, I wouldn't have thought about those things. I wouldn't have asked myself those questions about who I am. So it really was a process of self-discovery. That was one of the really great things. The negative things, I mean, it's the typical, you know, cattiness. I mean, when I was at Miss America, nobody even considered me as a potential front runner. And it was funny because I didn't know this at the time. It wasn't until we went to the homecoming of Miss America, only the top 5 went to the homecoming of Miss America. And Miss California, love her dearly, she's a great friend of mine, but she told me while we were all together one night, she's like, you know what? I really just thought you were like a big ditz. Because like I said, you know, I went there just, I'm just gonna have fun. This is so fun. And they called me the dark horse. They were like, we didn't see you coming at all. But again, that comes down to just remaining true to who you are. You know, it's like, I'm not going to try to put on a front like I'm some sophisticated person, because I wasn't. I mean, I was this surfer girl from Hawaii who just needed a dang scholarship to finish school, you know, because I didn't have guidance, parents paying for my college. And so, yeah, that was an interesting experience. But yeah, there was a lot of cattiness. There were people who tried to sue the pageant when I won, saying I had special treatment and I shouldn't have won it, you know, all of that stuff. But it was great. I mean, if anybody wants to do it, again, it's just that having the heart of knowing why you're doing it. Is it to get a crown, or is it truly to push forward a purpose? Because one of the greatest things about Miss America is they allow you to have a platform, a social platform, you know. So if you have something where you're like, you know what, I want to get this cause out there, that is a really great way to do it. It is a great vehicle to be able to put your platform out there, your organization, whatever it is that you're doing, and just to be able to raise it to a whole new level.
Yeah, because I've always been curious about like how those contestants kind of like prepare for like that question round. And
Yeah.
so, because it was like, how do they think of that on the spot? And, all of the questions are really like not only controversial, but you have to like, do some thinking beforehand. So I don't know, I would be a little nervous, but
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's like Jeopardy, right? You just
yeah,
have to study everything and
right.
just hope that when they ask you something, it's something that you did study or that you do know.
So was it just a process of reading the newspaper and knowing what was going on in the world?
Yeah, and that is what sparked my interest in the media. Again, going backwards. Every day. So every day I would wake up, I would take my dog on a 6 mile run, and I would come home. I would turn on CNN. I remember I would turn on CNN, watch or the headline news. I would watch the news. I would take notes. I would get all the newspapers. I was getting USA Today. I was getting the local newspaper, and I was taking notes of the most important topics and formulating my own thoughts around it, my own opinion, because typically they don't want to know if you know about what's going on. They want to know your opinion on it. They want to see if you're able to be like, yep, this is where I stand on this issue. And so that's what I was doing. It was just a whole lot of really truly understanding. And the funny thing is one of the questions that you kind of mentioned in the email was, is there a crossover in media?
Right.
Can you cross over, or relate to different careers? And absolutely, because during that time when I'm studying for a pageant, mind you, a Miss America pageant,
Mhm.
I'm starting to get these ideas of like, man, I think I could maybe go into this media world, because I was immersing myself in the world of news every single day, and I was studying it. And that's exactly what a reporter has to do. They need to know their stuff. Every single day, you have to be aware of what's going on. And then there was also this idea of, man, I could go into the world of politics, like maybe one day I could run for office. And it's
Yeah.
funny because people who come from the pageant world, they typically go in those directions. You either go into the media, you go into the world of communication, which is, public relations or marketing. That's another big one that kind of crosses over, or you go into politics. And so those are kind of like the three areas that I think can kind of go together. A lot of people retire out of the media and go into either politics or PR.
Oh. Yeah, I think because that was definitely a question that I was interested in asking because I feel like there's so many different ways that it could kind of like cross over, intertwine with other fields.
Mhm.
And do you think that, you did so much research every day? I know you mentioned like your process of waking up and watching the news, taking notes. Do you think that like preparation and, studying, did it make you like more nervous or actually more excited or more, how did it make you feel like going into the actual,
Oh gosh.
yeah.
It was a gamut, the gamut, of emotions. Absolutely made me more nervous, just because there's so much to know. But at the same time, of course, it made me feel more confident. The more that I studied, I absolutely felt like I was like, okay, this is a sure thing. I know about this, I know about that. And typically, I mean, you know how it is when you expand your mind, the ability to be able to at least formulate a thought around something you don't know about, maybe is a lot easier than when you're so short-sighted, So it did help me be able to at least open up my mind to more things that could have been thrown at me. And for the most part, I mean, everything that was thrown at me, I knew about, at least a little bit about, at
Yeah.
least enough to where I could say, like, this is what I know, this is how I feel.
Yeah. And I think that's also like another interesting way of like communication because I think just putting myself into your shoes of having to go up and answer a question, and it could be about anything that just scares me. Like I don't know if just like having having those questions, having it could be about anything. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's just kind of scary to me. But
I mean, I don't think there's anybody who would be like, put me there. I want to go, be judged on my answer of a question I have no idea. Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's normal to be nervous about that. That's why we're doing what we do. We're interviewing other people. That's
yeah,
why I don't volunteer myself to do this. I mean, even this today, I'm like telling my husband, I'm like, this is the one thing all month long where I was like, if I can just get through this interview, I'll be good for the rest of November. And that doesn't give me very many days. So, it's nerve-wracking to be on this side of the camera, having to answer questions. But I told him that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to try to study for this. I should know myself enough by now to be
yeah.
able to give these answers and hopefully inspire at least one person. I don't know, hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. It's really interesting, and I just it should be just a informal kind of like conversation, just talking about what you believe in, and who you are, your stories, and hopefully, I mean, you probably will inspire a lot of our viewers and people who listen to this, for sure. Yeah, yeah, and also, you're a woman of many talents, and I feel like you can do so many things, and and you're able to.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, no, don't worry. So you're able to do so many things, and you're involved in so many different fields. And I was always wanted to know how you manage to juggle all that you do.
Oh, goodness. I don't know that I've always been so good at juggling all that I do. It's it's rough. And this I think I kind of mentioned it, but really it has taken it's taken a lot to really just sit down and look at what is truly important in life. So for me now, that is God comes first. Every day I wake up and I spend several hours just reading the Bible, journaling, making sure that my prayer life is in order, and that sets me up for my day of success, right? So that has to be number one, and then second is my husband, not even my kids. My husband has to come second, and then my kids, and then my career, whatever. So just making sure that you really truly know what your priorities are, and then being able to say no, because I used to be a yes girl. I said yes to everything. I wanted to be able to do everything. And I think that came from a place of, oh my gosh, sorry. My husband is on the floor trying to get a fork out of this. Okay. But yeah, just, I think that came from a place of just wanting approval, and I had to learn that I don't need approval from people,
Right.
because everyone is trying to impress people who really are just impressed with themselves, so it's like, come on, who am I trying to prove something to? And so just being able to say no and put my foot down and make boundaries. I mean, boundaries is huge in my life. And so if I don't have enough time carved out for those four things that are the most important in my life, I do start to say no now. I didn't before, though. I did, obviously. Look at my list of things that I do. It's crazy. But even today in conversation at lunch, we're talking, I'm like, something's got to give. Because I'm homeschooling my kids now too, like 100% ordered curriculum. I'm homeschooling. I'm their teacher, I'm teaching them, and then I go to work in the afternoon, and it's rough. It's tiring. And so, anytime you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So making sure that the yeses and the nos are in order with your priorities.
Right. Oh, okay, yeah. And I feel like that's also a message that you kind of mentioned throughout is, having your priorities, setting them, and knowing what comes first and what comes second, and keeping those in mind before making a decision. So, yeah, so then I think, okay, so the last part is, of course, the student submitted questions, questions that have been submitted by students and what they kind of wanted to know. So the first question comes from Zoe, and she's a freshman, and she always wants to know, how do you film High Now during the pandemic?
Oh, okay. I kind of mentioned that.
Yeah.
We've actually not stopped. I mean, we have still been full throttle. We do more Zoom interviews, and then people send us B-roll. But every day we're still going out in the field, and we are still filming. We have very strict guidelines in place. We're not allowing people to. It used to be where tons of people would show up. There would be this PR person and that PR person, this marketing person, and you would have a whole restaurant full of people. But we're very strict about, no more than 5, and there's 2 of us on the cruise. So really you can't have more than 3 people. Even the way that we might, put microphones on people, or having a boom mic instead of a lavalier mic. Obviously it's just what everyone else is doing, having to adjust, and making sure that you're safe. Everybody has to keep your masks on if you're talking on camera together. The only time we let people take their masks off is if they're alone on camera. I'm 6 feet away from them interviewing them, and there's no people around them, so it's just doing the typical adjustments that I think everyone else is doing. But yeah, we're still going. We're still filming every single day.
Wow. Yeah, it's really interesting to see like 2 people just like 6 feet away and talking to each other.
I know.
Yeah.
It is weird.
Yeah, especially at our school, everyone has their masks on, and when we eat lunch, we have like these barriers.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so that's the only time we can take our masks off. We're not allowed to talk to anybody. So it's really weird. We're in this like confined space and eating and
Oh gosh.
yeah.
And then isn't it funny though, like when you see people on TV and they're close and you're like, whoa,
Yeah, yeah.
stop hugging.
I know I was watching like footage from I think I went to like the Bruno Mars concert like last year or something and
Yeah.
all that people and I was like
Too many people.
yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting to see how it's changed and how we're kind of making adjustments. But
Yeah.
yeah. And oh, okay, so the next question is from Kat, and she wants to know that throughout your life, what would you say is the largest piece of advice you would give to a young girl about to pursue her dreams career-wise or as an underlying passion that they want to pursue as she gets older?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Um, okay, wait, let me think about this because there's a
Yeah.
lot of stuff I could say about that. I mean, I think it comes back to the gifts and the passions thing
Right.
and priorities, right? So like making that list or knowing your gift and then making a list of passions and then really sharpening that throughout your life and making sure that whatever opportunities you're taking or jumping into is an opportunity that is going to only propel that. But then I also the advice I would give is especially for the younger generation is watch your social media,
Right.
because and I'm sure you guys know, I mean, I'm sure they teach you that in school, but that's the first place people are going to look when they want to look you up, and I think nowadays it's getting so cloudy as to what is okay to post, especially in the younger generation. I mean, the idea of like, I am this sexy goddess, like with a half of a shirt is totally normal nowadays, right? In the world of social media. But at the same time, you have to put your mind in the mind of an employer to know that they're not going to think that's okay. Like that is not the image that they're going to want to portray. So just being careful about what you post and again, yeah, always putting out well, I guess putting out the image you want to put out, whatever. I mean, if you want to be known, because there's a girl, sorry, I'm going off a tangent here, but there's a girl who I know, and all she does is post, pictures of herself in a bikini. And sometimes I worry because I think, gosh, she right now she's got like 60,000 followers, but then what is she gonna do when it comes time to get a career? If it's not when the influencing has stopped, what are you gonna do now? So just really being aware of that and being intentional about what you post, your content.
So then what are ways you think social media can be used in like a positive way? 'Cause I feel like there can be positives and negatives to anything.
Absolutely. And there are, and that's the biggest thing now that I'm trying to be better about is posting with intention. Like I ask myself, who am I posting this for? What is it going to do? Is it for my glory or is it for God's glory? Is it to inspire somebody? And really that's my hope. Whatever your intention is, just be bold about it and be confident knowing that this is what I'm doing it for. And even I think this is neat. Something that I've done is I've created new social media handles or platforms or whatever that are strictly for my passions. So I have one called Notes and Hues, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
I only follow people who do Bible journaling or who do, creative journaling. I only follow those people, and that's all I post about. And it becomes this place where I can kind of escape, from the other side of the reality of social media. Like that's all I see. That's my new echo chamber, but it starts to spark creativity within me. And then I also have one called Reader in Paradise. That's
Right.
just where I only follow people who read books or who post about books. And so it becomes this safe place, where you're able to be inspired and to inspire other people. And that to me, I love it. Like if I'm going to do mindless scrolling, that's the platform I'm going to
Yeah.
mindlessly scroll on. It's the one that's going to inspire me. So it absolutely has so many benefits still, again, seeing the positive in all of the chaos, right?
Yeah. I think and I think that's also really prevalent in nowadays. I feel like a lot of, there's especially for girls, I feel like there is always we have to be aware of what we have to post and what we can and can't. Having that mindset of, you know, keeping everything in line with what we want, and having like this filter, I think, is also
Yeah.
really important as well.
A literal filter, or no, I'm just kidding. I'm joking. Yeah, I mean it's tough, I think, and I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know how it is for you all in the circle that you all are in. It's probably very different from other circles of young women your same age, and what they view as what's appropriate and what isn't. Um, but again, it's a generational thing, like what is seen as normal in the eyes of teenagers and even 30 something year olds is very different from what is acceptable in an employer's eyes, so it's hard. It's just being aware of that, being aware of what they know, what they're looking at.
Well, I think that's like a good place to kind of, have everything end right there. And I think that's a good call to action to girls to, understand that what they post is, what people see. And I think that's a really important message for girls too. Yeah. So thank you. And I also know that it's your birthday coming up. So I hope that you have a great birthday as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. And it's on Thanksgiving. So
Yes, this year it is. So I'm
yeah.
going to be cooking for my birthday. Yay me.
Yeah. But hopefully this was a good kind of early birthday present for you. You get to talk to us. But yeah,
Thank you. It truly was an honor, and just grateful, that
yeah.
it's just a reminder that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, and hopefully it's because of things like this. I mean, this is what I do it for, to be able to raise up other people to do the same and to fill these shoes one day.
Yeah, we're super thankful for you too. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And also the last part is if you could tell us, where people can reach you or find you at, just to let them know.
Yeah. I mean, mostly, again, I'm mostly on Instagram, if anything, at Kanoe Gibson, or if you like anything that has to do with paper and pens and stuff like that, at Notes and Hues or at Reader in Paradise. But I'm not super active on those. Those are more for me. But yeah, at Kanoe Gibson. I'm not super active on Twitter. I have it, but I'm not. But hinowdaily.com is the website for Hi Now, and you can see all of our segments there. And again, we do tons of fun stuff. There's informative things on there. Or you can watch us, which I doubt you guys will be watching us because it's during the morning and you have to go to school. So forget it.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for, taking the time out of your day to come talk to us. It was definitely super inspiring for me, and I got to learn so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into our podcast, Where Do We Go? We hope that our guests inspired you as much as we were. Make sure to check out our website for more information about our organization, WeGo, as well as our Instagram, YouTube, and Spotify. We hope you have a great rest of your day and continue to lead and create positive change. This is Kylie, signing off. We'll see you next time.